Hello YouTube, it's me again, shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, and this time it's not another wrestling review. Nope, since a lot of internet reviewers are doing, well, top 10 or top 12 or top 11 countdowns, I figured it was time for old shintigercurl to do one of his own. Now, unlike a lot of other top 10 countdowns, I will not be having a lot of graphics. Unfortunately, this computer is a hand-me-down from my sister, and I don't have, and it's not really that top of the line. So I tried adding graphics to it, but unfortunately, the whole thing just went to crap, and I had to delete a bunch of other projects. I was going to do a little comedy skit called Story Time with Dusty Rose. Unfortunately, when I tried to add graphics, it corrupted the entire thing, and I had to delete the whole thing. It was a 20-minute video. Imagine my hurt. So yeah, unfortunately, my countdown video is going to be Spartan. No graphics, no music, and no scenes from what I'm eventually going to be talking about. Sadly, so you're just going to have to bear with it and deal with it until I either get a better computer or get some better equipment, which is few and far between. But I digress. What's my top list going to be? Well, if there's one thing I love more than professional wrestling, it's Japanese anime. From my early days of watching Voltron on the Mexican channel, try watching Voltron in Spanish. It's really weird. But from my early days, I fell in love with anime because it gave me something different to watch from what I was used to watching on TV back then. Not to say that Transformers and Thundercats and Silverhawks were shit. Those were incredible, but it just gave me some variety. Over the years, I've watched a multitude of different animes and a lot of manga. So I figured, hey, why not just count down my top 12 favorite animes? How about my top 12 favorite fights? That's right. If there's one thing a lot of anime fans love in anime, it's fights and fan service and shipping and moe and pretty boys and pretty boys. But it's mostly for the fights. Now, I decided to compilate my top 12, that's right, you heard me, 12 favorite anime fights. Now, let's get this out of the way. This is purely objective. This is my opinion, my list, so I decide what goes on the list. This could be, your list could be a lot different than mine. It could be exactly the same. You could like my list, you could hate my list. I don't care, it's my list. So, here are some of the guidelines. I will only be naming fights that I have personally seen from anime that I have watched. So if there are some fights that I'm missing, it's mostly because I have not watched that anime, either out of lack of interest or just lack of availability. Also, I reserve the right to include more than one fight from each franchise. I know everyone says that, oh, you can only include one from each franchise in your list, blah blah blah. But this is shintigercurl's list. Deal with it. And also, these will be from my own personal experiences. They also have to have some kind of significance and importance to the overall story arcs and of their own specific series. Now, with that out of the way, here it is, shintigercurl's top 12 anime fights. Why top 12? Because fuck you, that's why. Let's get to the list. Number 12, Goku versus Frieza, Dragon Ball Z. Yes, eventually you knew Dragon Ball Z was going to make this list. Why? Because, well, it's a gateway anime for a lot of us otakus. Between that, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, any otaku probably cut their teeth into anime out of those three. Dragon Ball being the most pertinent culprit. I mean, what's not to like? There was lots of intense fighting going on, flying, super speed, energy blasts everywhere. But out of an entire series, how do you pick the greatest fight? I go for Goku versus Frieza. Little backstory. After the Saiyans' initial invasion of Earth and Vegeta was sent home with his tail between his legs, or on the ground, thank you, Yajirobe, it was up to Krillin, Bulma, and Gohan to travel to planet Namek in search of the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish their friends back. Upon arrival, they are horrified to learn that they are not the only ones there. No, Vegeta is there, and he's more powerful than ever and healed up from his battle with Goku. But he's not the only one there. Oh no. Turns out his cohorts at the Planet Trade Organization are there looking for the Dragon Balls as well. Not to mention their boss, the terrifying Lord Frieza. For the majority of the Namekian arc, it was pretty much our heroes avoiding any and all contact with most of Frieza's minions, seeing as how they were way stronger than them. Vegeta took out most of them, but well, Vegeta knew better not to challenge Frieza head on. Goku learns of this and decides to head up there after he recovered from his wounds after his battle with Vegeta in a spaceship made by Bulma's father, Dr. Briefs. Also, it was equipped with a gravity machine that allowed him to train his body to the utmost limits of insanity. By the time he arrived, Goku was far stronger than he was before. Before, he was barely a match for Vegeta. Now, he was 10 times stronger, making easy work of the Ginyu Force. It was then that Vegeta realized that Goku might be the Super Saiyan, a legendary warrior born to the Saiyans once every 1,000 years. So, after battling with the Ginyu Force and substantially winning, our heroes are forced to battle Frieza. Vegeta, Gohan, Krillin, and later Piccolo battle against him as the tyrant transforms into each successive form before becoming his ultimate form, more powerful than ever. Vegeta, despite his claims of being a Super Saiyan, is no match for the powered Frieza. And that's when Goku, healed up from his battle with Ginyu, arrives on the scene, and thus begins one of the most titanic clashes and epic confrontations in the history of anime. The two start out battling each other, pretty much testing each other's limits, doing it even though it wrecks half the planet. When they finally get down to brass tacks, it is still a close showdown until Frieza reveals that he'd only been using a fraction of his true power and goes up to half of his strength. Even at half, he dominates Goku, beating him at every point. Before, Goku was a match for Frieza. Now, he was nothing more than a child to him. Goku tries for his major trump card, the Spirit Bomb, and with the aid of his friends, fires it at Frieza, but for some reason, Frieza survives. Taking his revenge, he attacks Goku and his friends, stabbing Vegeta in the, blowing a hole inside of Piccolo's stomach and killing Krillin. This pushes Goku to the edge of his rage, transforming him into the true Super Saiyan. And thus the real battle begins. Where once Frieza was dominating Goku, now Goku was the superior fighter, leaving Frieza with no other choice but to destroy planet Namek, voiding out its core and putting the planet on a timer, with only 5 minutes left before the planet explodes. It was then that Frieza revealed that he was indeed still hiding more of his power, and Goku, either out of a sense of rage or a need for a challenge, allows Frieza to power up to his full form. It seemed that the full power for Frieza was too much for Goku. Also, while this is going on, King Kai institutes a plan to resurrect the citizens of Namek and bring back Porunga, the Namekian dragon, to wish everyone off planet Namek except for Frieza, who would die from the explosion of the planet. But Goku overhears this somehow and elects that he wants to stay behind and finish the battle with Frieza. And thus, with everyone off the planet as it blows up around them, the two begin their final confrontation. And eventually, Goku humiliates him, saying that Frieza's power had reached such levels that he was no longer even a challenge. Infuriated, Frieza creates 2 Destructo discs and hopes to cut Goku in half, but Goku's use of tactics allowed him to slice the tyrant in half. As Goku prepares to leave to return to Earth, Frieza, for the first time in his life, begs for mercy. Goku, despite his rage at the tyrant for all that he's done, gives in and grants the tyrant last bit of energy. Using that last bit of energy, he attacks Goku from behind, and Goku blasts him away, presumably killing him. But we know better, and leaving Goku to escape the winner. Why is this fight important? Well, it introduced the mechanic of Super Saiyans. I would have put later fights in this, but this one was long, protracted, and it had such gravitas. Here was Frieza, the biggest, most baddest villain that the Dragon Ball universe had ever seen. He feared the Saiyan race, feared what they could become, feared their power. But it wasn't a native-born Saiyan that defeated him, no. It was an Earth-raised Saiyan who was in no way a Saiyan at all. And thus, that makes my number 12. Number 11, Naruto versus Gaara. Naruto. Yes, Naruto. Yes, the show that introduced us that showed us that loudmouth, orange-clad ninjas can exist in the world, gave us also some incredible fights. This fight I picked for reasons I will explain later. Background first. Naruto enters and his two squad mates, Sakura and Sasuke, enter the Chunin exams to rise to the second rank of a ninja, Chunin. After much battle, after many trials, tribulations, tests, and battles, Naruto and Sasuke make it to the finals of the Chunin exams. But it turns out the exams were actually just a front. The Sound Village, headed up by the arch nemesis of the hidden leaf village Orochimaru, working in conjunction with the Sand Village, plot to bring down the Leaf Village. Sasuke pursues a psychotic Gaara as he slowly begins to be possessed by Shukaku, the one-tailed sand beast. Despite Sasuke's attempts to beating him or even using the curse mark he gained from Orochimaru, he is no match for Gaara. Finally, Naruto comes into the equation. With Sakura's life on the line, Naruto decides to take the battle to Gaara, one Jinchuriki to another. This was an epic confrontation, Naruto using all the skills he had learned at this point, from his shadow clones, to his transformations, to his summoning, to even using the nine-tailed fox's chakra. This was a titanic battle, pitting two forces of nature against one another. But in the end, Naruto, with a final headbutt, ends the threat of Gaara. Gaara, who at that point believed himself to be the only thing that mattered in the world, wondered why Naruto fought so hard. Naruto revealed his past to Gaara, telling him that he understood his pain of being shunned and alone, but he had people that he wanted to protect. This was the spark that changed Gaara from a psychotic killer into a benevolent person. Why is this important? This was a turning point for not just Gaara, but for Naruto. He went from a dead last fool to being someone who could fight an opponent that not even the class genius Sasuke could beat. And he would go on to continue to rise in power, eventually matching and even eclipsing his once rival. Gaara would return as a good guy, stating that he owes the Leaf a great debt, and the two enemies would come to see each other as brothers, both understanding that they are simply dark reflections of one another. And that is why this one makes my number 11. Number 10, Vashta Stampede versus Bloody Knives, Trigun. Trigun was an interesting little series, starring on a dusty world of gun smoke, home to the mankind's only human walking disaster, the humanoid typhoon, Vashta Stampede. Despite his belief in pacifism and non-violence, he is a man constantly surrounded by violence, from those who wish to do him harm, those who wish to claim the bounty on his head, or those who wish to make him suffer. Primarily amongst them is his twin brother, Knives, who hates humanity, the humanity that Vash had struggled to save and protect. He had created an entire organization, the Gung-Ho Guns, to not only destroy humanity that survived the crash on the planet, but also to make Vash's life a living hell. And that they do. Vash had to fight his way through each bizarre member of the Gung-Ho Guns, eventually leading up to his final confrontation with his own brother. This was an intense gunfight. Two men who were masters of the gun battling each other even though the match itself was very, very short, it was intense. I don't even know how else to explain it, but in the end, Vash was able to defeat his brother without killing him, not only saving him, but not compromising his integrity. This was one of the classic Toonami battles that I myself personally enjoyed watching over and over and over again. If you like Trigun, if you like intense gun battles, watch this one. That's for my number 10. Number 9. Inuyasha versus Bankotsu. Inuyasha. I'm just going to say it right now. I hate Inuyasha. I loathe that anime with every fiber of my being, from the story to the fights to the characters to that whole love triangle between Inuyasha, Kagome, and Kikyo. This anime infuriates me to no end. And I've tried reading the manga. The manga is terrible. There are very few characters in this show that I actually like. Shishomaru being the only exception, being because, well, he's pretty badass and cool. But I won't say that it all sucked. Let's get to the background first. The Band of Seven arc. You see, Inuyasha's arch nemesis Naraku was severely injured after his battle with both brothers, so he was forced to flee to the realm of Mount Hakure. Why was this so important? Well, Mount Hakure had a massive anti-demon barrier placed around it. No demon could get near it without dying or being purified. But yet, somehow Naraku found his way inside. And as he was constructing a new body, he still needed bodyguards to protect him from everyone who wanted to kill him, which is pretty much every named character in the show. So, he resurrected the Band of Seven. The Band of Seven were a group of mercenaries, if you didn't tell that by the number, 7 of them. Each powerful enough to take down armies. If you wanted someone dead back then, you called the Band of fucking Seven. The local shoguns feared the Band of Seven's power and banded together to kill all 7 of them. Naraku, seeing their combat potential, raises them all from the dead with each with a piece of the sacred Shikon jewel to give them life. Each member of the Band of Seven are sort of one-trick ponies, but they're so that they took Inuyasha and the crew of company to vicious new levels. They played dirty, and I loved them for it. I didn't even care that one of them was a cross-dresser. The dude had a fucking whip sword. Oh, a whip sword. Anyway, their leader was Bankotsu, the youngest but most powerful member of the Band of Seven, wielding his trademark Banryu, a massive halberd that takes 10 men to lift, but he wields effortlessly with one hand. He would clash with Inuyasha a few times, proving that he was more than a match for Inuyasha and his fabled Tetsaiga. After planting sacred Shikon jewels into his Banryu, Bankotsu gains even more attacks, even at one point nearly defeating Inuyasha and his crew single-handedly. Soon afterwards, all the members of the Band of Seven are killed off, leaving only Bankotsu alive and ready to face Inuyasha in one final epic clash. This was the only battle in the whole series I liked. Here was Inuyasha, who had slain demons, both big and small, being taken and pushed to his utter physical limits by a resurrected human. And it's not just the battle that I like, it's Bankotsu. Bankotsu was so straightforward. There was no machinations or evil intentions. He was not pulling things behind the scenes. He was straightforward. He liked to fight and he liked to kill. Didn't matter who it was. Human, demon, didn't fucking matter to him. He killed because he enjoyed it. And possibly because, and he also had such loyalty to his group, the Band of Seven, that he saw them as brothers. So it kind of was sad to see him go. Even Inuyasha gave the guy props, saying that compared to Naraku, Bankotsu was a saint. So there's that. So yeah, Inuyasha, you get a pass from me on this one, but that's the only thing you're gonna get. Let's see. Number 8. Kenpachi versus Noritora. Ah, yes, our first foray into Bleach. It's from according to Abridged Nappa, Bleach is like Dragon Ball Z, but with swords. Needless to say, after the Soul Society arc, the series kind of fell off. There were still some high points, but never as high as the Soul Society. The Hueco Mundo arc was okay, with Ichigo and his friends infiltrating Aizen's base and battling members of the Espada, the strongest members of his army. Ichigo, having been beaten up after his battle with the 6th Espada, Grimmjow Jaggerjack, he then faced off against Noritora Jigen, the 5th Espada, who had no such honor like the previous Espada. Despite the help from his friend Nell, Ichigo was in no condition to fight, but a timely arrival from Kenpachi Zaraki, the 10th squad captain of the Soul Society, changed all that, and thus began an epic slugfest between these two battle-nut-crazy motherfuckers. Everyone knows that Kenpachi Zaraki loves a good fight, and he was fighting up against a guy whose skin was said to be uncuttable. The two of them clashed their swords together, Noritora trying to prove his supremacy over a simple Soul Reaper, and Kenpachi just wanting to have a good time. Each time Noritora thinks he has Kenpachi just laughs, and it irritates him even further. I didn't really care for Noritora, and seeing Kenpachi just haul this guy out and beat him and slash him just brought a smile to my face. Even when he released his Restriction Santa Teresa and unleashed 6 arms, Kenpachi unveiled a secret that he had been learning kendo from old man genocide himself, Captain Yamamoto, and with a 2-handed slash puts an end to Noritora. This was an epic showdown between two very powerful fighters. This was probably the most anticipated match in the entire Hueco Mundo arc. Yes, even surpassing Ichigo versus Ulquiorra. Sorry, you didn't make the list. This one was just better. Kenpachi Zaraki. Dude is a badass. Number 7. The Gurren Lagann Brigade versus the Antispirals. Now, when I first heard about Gurren Lagann, I did not have a real overall good opinion of it. I saw the first episode, wasn't impressed, so I decided to stick with it because of Kamina. As the series progressed, it grew on me and to become one of my favorite all-time giant mecha anime, and it never shows that. It shows it better than the senses-shattering final battle between Simone the Digger and his Gurren Brigade against the Antispirals, a race of aliens who want to halt evolution around the universe because they believed it would lead to the end of the universe. This was a mech battle of biblical proportions. 2 mechs, giant mechs, bigger than whole galaxies themselves, using galaxies as throwing stars in battles that could be felt across the universe itself, all for the fate to choose. If you haven't watched Gurren, I'm not even gonna. I can't do this fight any justice. Do yourself a favor. Go watch it on YouTube, or better yet, watch the whole fucking series. It's short, but it's sweet. I mean, come on. Who the hell do you think I am? Number 6. Yusuke versus Sensui. Yu Yu Hakusho. According to Vegeta, he liked Bleach when it was called Yu Yu Hakusho, and he liked that show better when it was called Dragon Ball Z. But needless to say, it didn't get so Dragon Ball-esque until the latter half. Anyway, if you know anything about Yu Yu Hakusho, then you know about the trials and tribulations of one spirit detective named Yusuke Urameshi. After surviving the wars that were the Dark Tournament, he and his friends return and discover that there's a new threat on the horizon. The Sensui 7, led by Shinobu Sensui, former spirit detective, now turned psychotic madman, determined to bring about the end of the world by opening a portal to Makai, the home of the demons. Despite Yusuke's best efforts, he is unable to compete with the superior fighting style and intellect of Sensui and his 7 different personalities. When their battle takes place deep underground in front of the steadily opening demon gate, Yusuke puts all of his energy and abilities into beating Sensui, but he can only beat one personality at a time, until he eventually meets the core personality, Shinobu Sensui. It is then that he learns the horrifying truth that Sensui had mastered holy energy, an energy so powerful that it makes demon energy look pale in comparison, and he had become the physical equivalent of an S-class demon. Deciding to give his friends a chance, Yusuke allows Sensui to kill him. Their rage at his death forces them all to gain further powers and battle Sensui in an effort to avenge their fallen friend. But what they didn't realize was that Yusuke himself was part demon. Mazaku, to be exact, one of the oldest and most powerful demons alive. Yusuke is resurrected and even more powerful than before, and journeys to the demon world, where giving his friends the little time off, he decides to fight Sensui by himself. Even Sensui using his energy, the two of them are near equal, battling each other across all of Makai, until Yusuke is possessed by the spirit of his ancestral father, Ryzen. Now possessed of his father, Yusuke dominates the once powerful Sensui, beating him within an inch of his life, and eventually giving him one final spirit gun. Yusuke is upset that he didn't finish the fight on his own, but he finds out that Sensui was dying anyway, and simply wanted to die at the hands of a powerful demon, which Yusuke gave. This would be a turning point in the series, as Yusuke couldn't tell what was right or wrong. He was not quite human, but not quite demon, and would eventually go on to have, his actions would go on to have grave implications for Makai as well as the world of humans forever, leading up to the Demon World Tournament. But that's for another time. Number 5, The Promised Day. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Ah, Brotherhood. You made me like Full Metal Alchemist again. Now, don't get me wrong. I liked the original Full Metal Alchemist anime for what it was worth, but a lot of it just left a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't like how Ed was portrayed as a spoiled little brat who got on everyone's bad side. Alphonse acted too timid at times when he should have been more decisive. Winry was barely there. Mustang was a creep. The homunculi didn't really leave that much of an impression. Scar lived and died as an irredeemable religious nutbag who killed people and had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And Dante was just disappointing as a final villain. Then came Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and all of that went away. And whereas before, Edward became a much more likable and determined character, Alphonse could hold his own. We had the introduction of the Shinkanese people, Lin and Ling. We also included them in the introduction of the people from the military faction from Briggs, including the awesome Major General Olivia Armstrong. I'd marry her if she wasn't such a crazy bitch. And Scar, well, Scar wasn't the irredeemable, murderous asshole that he was, and actually saw the error of his ways. And Winry actually played an important part of the series, and I could see why people liked Ed and Winry together. this one made sense to me. And most of all, Father was actually a very intimidating and forceful villain. But why haven't I named a single fight from this? Because I named the Promised Day. Through most of the series, there were hints of the promised day, the day when all the plans and machinations of Father and his homunculus children would come to a sinister head that would result in the destruction of all of the entire country. And this was a battle to end all battles. Why can I pick a single fight from this one? Because they're all fucking awesome! Between Mustang and his faction going up against Fuhrer King Bradley's faction, Central being turned into a fucking battleground, immortal flesh-eating zombies wanting to kill everything. You had you had Ishvalans doing some kind of weird alchemy in the background, the homunculi fighting all over the place, fighting chimeras all over the place. You had Fuhrer King Bradley taking out a fucking tank. The fights were just incredible. Just when you think it couldn't get more ratcheted up, it did. Even that final battle between Scar and Fuhrer King Bradley was bloody, epic, and personal. God, this was amazing. And the final battle against Father was more satisfying than that shit ending we got with Dante. I can't really pick a fight out of this entire arc because the whole arc is just one big battle for survival. And man, was it epic. Seriously, if someone wanted to watch Full Metal Alchemist, I would recommend Brotherhood over the original. It's just more satisfying, and The Promised Day lives up to the hype and more. It's just one big, awesome battle. And it doesn't get any better than that. Number 4, Naruto versus Pain. That's right, we're going back to the world of Naruto. This time to Shippuden. 2 years have passed. Naruto has gotten stronger, but still not strong enough to deal with the Akatsuki. Those bastards who just want to take that demon out of him and use it for nefarious purposes. And none were more nefarious than their leader, Pain. That's right. He was the ninja who brought peace to the Hidden Rain village. The ninja who killed Jiraiya. And the ninja who single-handedly invaded Konoha. Before, it took 2 villages working in secret to bring Konoha to its knees. Now, it just takes 6 guys, all the same person, to bring Konoha to its knees. While Naruto was training to master sage arts, Pain decided to pay a little visit. Despite Konoha's desperate efforts to fend him off, they were no match for Pain. And as an added bonus, he pretty much nukes half the village with one of his almighty pushes. It is then that Naruto arrives on the scene, having mastered sage arts and fully backed up by a squad of toads. He then battles Pain alone and does better than anyone has ever done. Even when he was pinned down, he got a little help from Hinata. I'm not going to mention what she says because I'm not a fan of Naruhina. Anyway, Naruto loses his shit and takes the battle against Pain outside as he goes full 8 tails. But just when he reaches about the 9th, he gets an image from his father. The Konoha's Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage. Naruto decides to have a talk with his long-lost father, and while he punched him for putting the demon inside of him, he was also happy to find that his father is one of the most legendary ninjas of the village. With one final chance, he battles Pain by himself, taking out his last body and tracking him down. He could have easily killed him, but no. Naruto figures the best way to handle this is to forgive Pain for all that he's done. Touched by this, Nagato, Pain's real name, decides to give Naruto a gift and bring back everyone that he killed during his invasion. And with that, Nagato passes away. His partner, Conan, gives Naruto a bouquet of paper flowers and thanks him for finally enlightening her old friend and redeeming him the way he should. When Naruto returns home, the village welcomes him and heralds him as its hero. Naruto finally being acknowledged as the hero and truly great ninja that he is. He even getting a hug from his longtime crush, Sakura. This was a very big turning point for the series. Not only had Naruto become world famous by defeating the leader of the Akatsuki, who was said to be undefeatable by himself, but he also achieved one of his dreams of becoming fully recognized by the village as as a great ninja, and even some of them saying he should be Hokage. This would only hint at the greater things that he would go on to do in the Fourth Great Ninja War. Number 3, Ichigo versus Biakuya, Bleach. Now, amongst Bleach fans, everyone knows the same thing. The Soul Society was as good as the series got. It had great build-up, great characters, great fights. It was great all around. It was Taikubo at his best. Then everything else kinda... Then we had Hueco Mundo arc was okay, and then the fake Karakura Town arc kinda dragged. Then that whole flashback, and then the Fullbringer arc sucked donkey dicks, and now we're in the Holy War, which at times is awesome, but at times not as awesome. But we know that the Soul Society arc was the best arc. Here, Ichigo Kurosaki was the first focus on Ichigo Kurosaki's duels with Byakuya Kuchiki. The first time he fought him back in Karakura Town, he was only curb stomped. Not even. He was humiliated by Byakuya, and the fact that he survived was a miracle in and of itself. The second time these two would cross swords was at the Repentance Chamber, Ichigo having gotten his own Zanpakuto and seemed to be more of a match for him, but still Byakuya had his Bankai, forcing Ichigo to train even further to achieve Bankai faster than anyone has ever achieved it in the history of the Soul Society. By the time Rukia Kuchiki's execution came, Ichigo was now more powerful than ever, taking down 3 lieutenants barehanded before moving on to face off against Byakuya Kuchiki. At first, it seemed like Byakuya dismissed him, using his Zenbonzakura's Shikai to try to finish Ichigo off. But Ichigo's newly learned technique, the Getsuga Tensho, proves too much for him, forcing the captain to go into his Bangai, Zenbonzagura Kagayoshi. Ichigo tries to fight him, but his Bankai is too much for him. And that's when Ichigo finally reveals all of his hard work, all the training that he's put up, reveals his Bankai, Tenza Zangetsu. What entails next is an epic showdown, as Ichigo's newfound speed is even greater than the speedy captain's is. His flower petal blades unable to catch up to the speedy young Soul Reaper, finally forcing him to go to his Seikei, Zenbonzakura Kagayoshi, abandoning all defense and pushing himself to kill Ichigo. But it turns out that Ichigo is getting slower. His power compressing has cracking his bones, and just when it seemed like he was gone, his inner hollow awakens, evening up the match. But Ichigo, wanting to finish the fight on his own terms, rips the mask off, and the two decide to finish it in one final clash. In one final swipe, Ichigo defeats Byakuya Kuchiki, and he finally relents in allowing Ichigo to save the woman he cares for more than anyone else in the world. This fight was epic. It had awesome build-up, awesome fights. It was just an amazing fight in and of itself, seeing these two men who are inflexible in their own positions duel each other epically. This know-nothing Soul Reaper who just gained his powers a few months ago versus a captain of wide experience and intense deadly lethality. In the end, Ichigo proved himself worthy and proved himself not only to be a formidable threat, but a great fighter as well, as he finally saves Rukia Kuchiki. I just wish all of his fights were this good. Number 2, Kazuma versus Ryuho. Scried. What can you say about Scried? It's like if JoJo's Bizarre Adventure had a love child with the X-Men and with a little bit of Pokemon splooged in there. It's about this land. It's about what was once Japan became known as Area Zero. Here, beings who develop superpowers known as alters are born every day, and among them is Kazuma, the Shellblood, the alter who will do anything for money. This brings him into conflict with Holy, or is it Hold or Holy, one of the two, an organization made entirely of nothing but alter users designed to hunt down alter users. Among their top agents, Ryuho, master of Zetsui. For the majority of this short series, these two would have an antagonistic relationship where they can't go 5 minutes without beating the piss out of each other. Sometimes Ryuho wins, sometimes Kazuma wins. Towards the end, when they had to deal with Kyoji Mujo, they became reluctant allies, forced to fight on the same side, but eventually fighting for the lost ground and protecting them from the encroaching mainland. Then, in the final episode, the two decide, with no animosity towards one another, to finally settle the things, to see who truly is the strongest alter user in the lost ground. I like this fight because it's just so brutal but so cathartic. These two men who had such animosity towards each other now fight not with hatred or trying to destroy one another, just to see who's better. A fight that spans the entire area with everyone watching, from their former members of Hold to some of the native alters to even straight Cougar, who passes away silently watching the two people he cares about most in the world take their powers to their absolute zenith. Eventually, after all their DBZS battles, they're finally brought down low, bringing it to a vicious and brutal fist fight. No martial art moves, no superpowers, just fist against fist. This was a fantastic and final fight to a great little series. Then, if it's on YouTube, so go check it out. You will not be disappointed. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, the number 1 greatest fight in anime history is Monkey D. Luffy versus Rob Lucci. One Piece. If you haven't already noticed by now, I'm something of a One Piece fan. I love this show. I love the manga. Hell, I got one of the mangas right here. See? I love this show. Now, I can make a whole top 12 list of my favorite One Piece fights, and still it wouldn't do the series justice. There's just so many great fights. Mostly because they're brutal, other times because they're so inventive. It's not just about who hits the hardest. Sometimes it's about who thinks the best. And that's what I like. The interesting powers and interesting characters make this series one of my all-time favorites. Why is this one number 1? Well, let's get to the backstory. In the Water 7 arc, it is revealed that the Straw Hats are splintered in ways they never thought possible. Robin had left the group, seemingly betraying them. Usopp left after a major fight with Luffy, and the crew was being hunted down as attempted assassins of the city's mayor, Iceberg. After it was revealed that the Galilaw's members of the Galilaw's shipwriters were actually members of a secret government organization known as CP9, the Straw Hats were cleared and led an all-or-nothing raid to bring Robin home. That raid led to the Enos Lobby, the judicial island. But standing in their way were not only the government officials, but the fighters of CP9, all of whom deadly assassins in their own right. And their strongest fighter, Rob Lucci, said to be the strongest member of CP9 in its history. The last time these two met, Luffy was beaten outright by Rob Lucci's superior mastery of Ryokushiki, or the 6 powers, as is known in the dub, and his animal devil fruit, the leopard fruit. This time would be a whole lot different. And what a battle it was. The reason why this one rates so high is because unlike a lot of the other fights that I have named, there's no energy, no chi, no chakra, no ki, no life force, none of that stuff that you normally see out of fights in anime. There were no powering up to they were blue in the face or flying everywhere or throwing out energy balls. This was just a straight up fist fight. Maybe Rob Lucci was using some kind of super karate that let him bounce off the air and make blades of wind that cut ships and poke his fingers into people's bodies, and he could turn into a giant leopard wearing a tuxedo. And Luffy was a rubber man who could stretch his arms and make his arms giant. But none of that matters. It was just a superpowered fist fight. This was a brutal, brutal fight to watch. Just two men beating the piss out of each other. Luffy, determined to save Robin before she exited the gates of justice and losing her forever. Lucci, simply wanting to stop him at any and all costs. The fight just got ratcheted up, each time both men bringing their best A-game. Luffy unleashing his new Gear 2 and Gear 3 moves, while Lucci unleashing the full power of his 6 power style, taking it to levels that never before seen. But if it just gets even more intense. As this is going on, a Buster Call is happening. For those who are uninitiated, a Buster Call is like a tactical nuclear strike against a single island or target. I mean, this is a fleet of marine battleships led by vice admirals would come and utterly wipe an island off the map. I'm not talking about they would just blow up a few buildings. They pounded the shit out of that island until it was nothing, until it was off the map, until it didn't exist anymore. And while these two are fighting, the island is steadily getting destroyed around them, bit by bit. Each second that these two spend pounding the crap out of each other is another part of the island that vanishes. It even got to the point where Luffy was physically exhausted and unable to continue the fight. It was only when the appearance of Usopp under the guise of Sniper King, telling him and encouraging him to get up and fight on, even offering to fight Rob Lucci in his place. Luffy, realizing that Lucci would kill Usopp outright, continues the battle, claiming that he would not drop until he beat Lucci. Just when it seemed like Luffy would fall, he channels up all of his emotion, all of the anger, all of everything that he has gone through in the past few days into one final gum jet Gatling, finally beating Rob Lucci and collapsing due to it. This was a brutal, brutal, brutal fight. I felt exhausted just watching Luffy collapse on to the ground like that. It was just so, wow. What can you say? Afterwards, because not only did Luffy raid Enies Lobby and declare war on the world government, he beat someone that even the warlords considered unbeatable, and earned him more than tripled his bounty at the time, up to 300 million. But go on YouTube. It's on there. I'd say it's about 50 minutes of action that you will never ever see from another anime again. Trust me on this, I should know. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was my top 12 list. Did you agree? Did you disagree? Leave a comment below. If you like this video and want to see more, click the subscribe button down below. And also click like, share, do whatever you want. But that's my list. So until the next time, this is shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, letting you know that it's okay to like anime.